I share with you today in this short YouTube episode a few precious tidbits about my personal Armenian story as it begins in Ottoman Turkey in the early 1900s and manifests itself today in a battered dream for an Israeli-Palestinian two-state solution. My virtual compass of sorts. My grandparents, both paternal and maternal, hail from Ottoman Turkey, and both sides of my family were fortunate enough to escape death during the harrowing massacres of the Armenian genocide of 1915 that culled a large number of Armenians living in Turkey. In their peripatetic journey to find a new home, they settled down in Lebanon first, then in Jordan, and finally in Palestine. So, this is where my story really starts in earnest today. My mom was a young girl living in quite an upmarket district of Jerusalem during the British Mandate of Palestine. My grandpa, her dad, had a successful business as a carpet merchant, and they lived alongside many Palestinian, Arab, and Armenian neighbors. As the British Mandate came to an abrupt and messy end, with the ludicrous fallacy of Palestine being a land without people for a people without a land, my family tried to stay put in their house since my grandparents did not wish to lose everything they'd built together till then. After all, remember that my grandpa had already witnessed ruination once before in Ottoman Turkey. But the leaders of the newborn Israel had other designs. My mother recounted to me how the Israeli forces surrounded their neighborhood and gave the inhabitants, Armenian or Arab, Muslim or Christian, 48 hours to leave everything and go away. So it was not a voluntary repatriation as some people claim falsely, blithely even. It was simply them losing everything they owned, dispossessed of their homes, cars, furniture, clothes, the proverbial lemon tree or door key, all the way to their sanguine hopes. So they had to run for their lives, just like so many other families, to the count of over 700,000 refugees altogether. But let's park 1948 and fast forward now to 1967, when my family found itself in Jordan via a spell in Lebanon, where my grandpa re-established his carpet business and became a prosperous entrepreneur in the Hashemite kingdom. But the Six-Day War of 1967 had other nasty plans in store. My family lost their house, this time the one in Jericho, confiscated by the Israeli army who used it as their HQ. And they all eventually also left Ramallah for Jerusalem so to be nearer their workplaces. My grandpa near his carpet shop, my dad near his practice, and my uncle near his pharmacy. Jordan was their heyday, a time of security, conviviality, and many friendships that was brutally shattered by an occupation in 1967 that became more and more cruel year in, year out. My grandparents are dead now. My parents too, but their legacy lives on in an occupied Palestine that has faced an apartheid system for years and is now seesawing between genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and forcible displacement. A lifetime robbed in Ottoman Turkey, another lifetime also robbed in British mandated Palestine, when Israel was forced onto a peaceful people due to the biblical belief of British politicians like Arthur James Balfour in 1917 that this land was a homeland for Jews. Add to this messianism also the mea culpa by Europe for its crimes later during the Holocaust. And now in Gaza. Its 2 million inhabitants are being starved out to death by Israel alongside being bombed and displaced endlessly, whilst the 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank and Jerusalem are also being ejected from their lands, slowly but surely, piano piano, under the watchful and inert eyes of the world. The Israel of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is remorselessly, relentlessly striving to wipe out Palestine, or more exactly, the non Jewish identity of these lands. And I often find myself asking, what would a European man or woman, you, in Leeds, Dublin, Lyon, Milano, Riga, Barcelona, Warsaw, or elsewhere feel if this were their refugee story? Would Europe not fight back for its survival as it did during the big wars and is doing today so combatively with Ukraine? Could it be racism? A colonial mentality that never leaves those who look down on other peoples? Indifference, perhaps? Or plain guilt? Has Europe, of which I have happily been part of for the better part of my life, shed away its hard earned values and human rights as it chases dominance, power, and money? And by the way, if it is all these things, then where do most, not all, mind you, Arab states fit in this equation as they pay Palestinians lip service and feign brotherly solidarity? Is it fear, servility, treachery, or indifference to? I do not expect us all to emulate the Polish Franciscan conventual friar Saint Maximilian Kolbe, who during World War II volunteered to die in place of a stranger in the Auschwitz concentration camp. That is too much. But I expect us to have the courage and integrity to stand for and defend our principles, or as the trite expression goes these days, to speak truth to power. So I ask individuals, NGOs, think tanks, churches, journalists a simple question. Have we bottled it in the face of uncaring political and economic powers and principalities, as expressed also in the writings of St. Paul in the New Testament? Integrity, honesty, or neither? Well, I think that integrity is when I tell myself the truth, whereas honesty is when I tell the truth to others. Or, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, often quoted but seldom understood, you can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. As I grow a bit grisly and increasingly seek a forlorn hope, which is almost transcendental, if not also evanescent, I also think often of my parents and grandparents. They helped chisel my beliefs. So I struggle with how I, an Armenian, whose ethos, memory, or cultural genes are embedded in the genocide witnessed by my family in 1915, can react to yet another genocide that I witness in Palestine today. What are my defenses, my realities? After all, the Bible teaches us that great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment. So wisdom mightn't come with age, granted, but I still hope it comes with experience. So, focusing on this point, how do we Armenians, who suffered a genocide too, and whose suffering was used by the Polish Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin to draft the 1948 Genocide Convention, acknowledge the Palestinian genocide of 2025 and its manifestation as a continuation of the Nakba of 1948? Do we empathize and act in solidarity with others? Or are we so introverted in ethnic, religious, and cultural terms that we only focus on our own pain? Do we remember that Palestinians, Muslim and Christian alike, opened their doors to Armenians and welcomed them as they were forced to leave hearth and home in Ottoman Turkey and travel to Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, Iran, and then well beyond? Interestingly enough, both Armenians and Jews have already witnessed the crimes of genocide during the First and Second World Wars. But how do they experience this déjà vu chapter? Are they inured to the suffering of others? And how do the Western powers, who promise that this will never be allowed to happen again, allow themselves to ignore, let alone condone, the crimes occurring in different formats in Gaza and the West Bank? Is it all about interests? Or is there still a smidgen of universal humanism we identify with? What do we do when our humanity is hurt? Turn to crude populism? Me, when I look at Gaza, I don't only see Palestinians being wantonly cancelled by a vastly superior military behemoth. I don't only see their starvation, deliberate killing, maiming, raping, deportation, and humiliation. In their plight and in their teardrops, as well as in their despair, I see every single Armenian child, woman, and man who experienced the same crimes over a century ago. In both instances, past and present, I detect the words of Hannah Arendt in her analysis of Adolf Eichmann's trial as the execrable banality of evil. But could it be that such evil actions, like Gaza today, are carried out by ordinary, seemingly normal individuals who fail to think critically about their actions? And isn't this even more horrific? So I welcome you to my family and also to my world, in a broken world that struggles to protect its humanity and often seeks political redemption for human problems. And as we all watch Gaza and shake our heads with disbelief, I wonder, is this resignation or is it determination?